Good morning and welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for joining us on this grad recruitment webinar. My name is Natasha Priya-Cannon. I am the Managing Director for In-House Recruitment, the fastest growing community for in-house recruitment, in-house recruiters, talent acquisition and HR professionals in the UK here. So as I said, thank you very much for joining us for this webinar, and a special welcome to our speaker, which is Jack from SHL. SHL are also our event partner for this webinar session. So for those of you who don't know who SHL are, they are the market leaders in talent assessment. So I think Jack might explain a little bit more detail exactly who they are and what they do. So the title of today's webinar, as I'm sure you're all aware, is A New Era in Graduate Recruitment and Time for a Meaningful Experience. So definitely looking forward to get started. I will be online, but I will turn my webcam off whilst Jack's speaking so as not to distract you. We do have a couple of polls going on throughout this webinar, which will be on the right-hand side of your screen once I've published them. So do get involved. It's a little bit of interaction, a bit of engagement, and also gives us a good idea of what you guys are thinking and where you're up to in the market as well. We are highly encouraging questions throughout the presentation, and Jack won't answer them on the spot as they come through, but we will come back to them at the end of the webinar. So do feel free to pop them in the questions box at any point. And if you like the look of another question, you can up-like it as well. So we'll come to those at the end. The session is also being recorded, so if it does sort of cut out for you at any point, or if you start having any sort of technical issues with sound, do first of all try sort of refreshing the page, but we will be sending the replay out to you post webinar later on today. So that's it from me. If you guys have got any questions, pop them on the right hand side. But I will now hand over to Jack. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Natasha. I will get the slides shared so everyone can see them. So I hope they're up on the screen now. Yeah, so thank you very much. Hello, I'm Jack Walker, and welcome, as Natasha said, to the SHL webinar on a new era in graduate recruitment. I'm excited to be with you virtually for this session. Obviously, it's a webinar, so it would have been virtual anyway, but this is how everything is done these days. I'm joining you from Southwest London and relying on Virgin Media's fibre optic internet. So they haven't covered themselves in glory recently, so fingers crossed it all goes okay. I also have a dog and a 2.5-week-old baby, so please excuse any sudden barks or cries, but hopefully that we won't have too many disturbances throughout. A bit about me, so I'll move on to the next slide. So I've worked at SHL for 8 years, or just over 8 years, and have supported organisations with a huge range of talent acquisition and talent management challenges. In the last few years in particular, I've supported several of our key graduate clients with their programs, and more recently been the UK's voice in the global SHL Graduate Solution Group. I'm sure most of you have come across SHL and at some point, but ultimately we are the world's largest assessment technology company, helping organisations to make more accurate decisions about their people. We operate throughout the whole employee life cycle, but primarily in talent acquisition and talent management. From an early careers perspective in particular, we help clients identify and secure the top graduates for their business, helping them achieve greater diversity, stronger brand advocacy, and the highest level of predictive power. We do this by truly understanding the graduates and on top of that, the workplace of today. I hope you'll walk away from your desks, dining tables, or potentially sofas with a greater knowledge of these areas after today's session. So clearly it would be, it's necessary to mention the current situation that we're in. So I'm going to kick things off with a bit of interactivity, and obviously it's a pretty hot topic. So it'd be really interesting to know with the polls on how the COVID-19 situation is affecting your graduate recruitment strategy. We have our own opinions on this and from our own conversations, but it'd be great to see what the group is saying. So the options are no impact, moving ahead as planned, progressing with an adapted process or program, currently on hold or postponed, or not recruiting graduates this year. So I will give you a few seconds to fill that up. slowly filling up. Here we go. So there's definitely a strong leader here, which is what I expected. Natasha, how will I know once it's all being done?
I think people just keep on doing it as they go through. So just maybe give them another 20 seconds or so, and then we'll see what the results are.
Yeah,
some people don't like doing polls.
No, there's a very much a clear winner, so I don't think that's going to change. So let's probably put it on pause there and carry on in the essence of time. So as expected, progressing with an adapted process or program was the outstanding winner with nearly 2/3 of the vote, so finishing off at about 62%. The runner-up was currently on hold or postponed, and I guess that from the options that were in front of you there, that is what we would expect and have been expecting. So clearly the majority in being answer B is in line with a lot of the conversations that we've been having with our clients. The adaptations can be quite varied, but the primary one that I'm coming across, and I'll mention it in a bit, is around sort of maybe reducing headcount of the number of grads that you're bringing in. So great, thank you very much for that. I'll move on. So there's been lots and lots in the news, and here are a few of the recent headlines that I'll let you read while I talk away. And clearly most of them are fairly negative. There was a recent video in the Wall Street Journal as well talking about how graduates are feeling, particularly in the States, in the campus side of things, with regards to not finishing their studies and then feeling very, very nervous about what comes next and getting a job. From the results of the poll, you can see clearly why these headlines say what they do. The prospect is of kind of youth unemployment crumbling, or job applications being paused, or kind of less availability of roles, etc. But if we may, let's take a little bit of a step back and look at what is happening behind the scenes for organisations that are putting things on hold, or at least adapting and recruiting less. From what we've gathered through the conversations from our side of things, it's the uncertainty that's the main problem, and that unknown of what if we can't afford to keep the graduates that we bring in, what if we can't train them or nurture these new entrants, and if they leave or don't feel engaged, there's obviously a big problem there too. What if we can't actually bring them in for face-to-face assessment? Clearly, there are lots of ways around that, but that's still a big thing. And then also onboarding individuals at home. I know that, for example, a big telecoms company in the UK has struggled with a major shortage in laptops, and also the fact that most organisations with their high security these days require individuals to come to their office and actually plug into the internet there and the particular sort of connections to be able to get the necessary security on those laptops. But we think that there is another way, and thinking about it from a positive perspective, or kind of into a positive perspective, what are the risks of not hiring graduates this year? There are clearly going to be gaps in future teams. These will already start to show by Christmas, and if these people are not in place and they cannot progress on their career paths, there will be an overwhelming problem with no new graduates to support projects and roles. We can say these things will be for certain if nothing is done and everything is put on hold. So it is reassuring to see that the majority of the people on this webinar are looking to adapt rather than stop. I think that there obviously will be long-term damage from the gaps in teams, and then also on the individuals themselves. So there's obviously a big opportunity to think about the pool that is going to be there this year, that some people, that there's going to be a bigger pool to pick from, and a lot of individuals that aren't going to be able to get on the programs that they may well have done just purely because of numbers. So what I'm essentially saying is that it's really important to provide a well-structured argument to your businesses to continue as best you can with this really vital recruitment. However, I obviously completely understand that it's not necessarily your decision to make, and you may not directly be in control. The short-term relief of not hiring under these uncertain conditions means that the business may suffer in the long term. A couple of organizations, one sort of security and defense that I spoke to yesterday, and then also this big telecoms company, they're both in the camp of just reducing the numbers, and pretty much kind of reducing them by 50% with regards to how many new graduates they're going to bring in. So that may be familiar with some of the people on in this session. So putting some numbers behind this as well, from the research that we've done, and this stretches beyond just graduates. This is, but from a graduate perspective, what we are seeing, while we battle to keep the R number down in the UK and attempt to open up the economy, the reality of running a graduate program still looks really challenging. We're predicting an increase in students applying for far fewer available roles, with overall graduate headcount in businesses declining. This is obviously going to be is going to really stretch graduate teams. They're going to be inundated with applications, more than normal, because we already know that that's a general challenge anyway. And so therefore providing really fair and objective automated processes, but also balancing those with a real emphasis on quality of hire, will be more important than it's ever been. Making sure that you align the individuals that are looking to you as an organization with the behaviors and the potential that is really required by your business will really help in the future, because it's quite likely that there'll be graduates who will be really good and outstanding and match to you well, but may not have had you as an original first choice. There's a lot of conversation out there about graduates just taking what they get given, and they may well be the perfect graduate for you, but they may not think that they are. And I think that it's a really important thing to understand, that I'm kind of giving them what they need, encouraging them and engaging them in your business, and changing the way that they may have originally perceived you is really important. A lot of that can be done at the front end selection stage. From a slightly more positive perspective, Trendance has done some really recent research. So this was only last month. The 44% of the candidates who reported that their applications were still progressing, so clearly 60-odd% of the companies here today are doing that, more than half are now completing all assessments online, showing that from the start over the last 6 to 8 weeks, where things really changed for us, there's been a high level of capability and agility from graduate employers to flex their processes. Interestingly, and maybe unsurprisingly from the first perspective, but Trendance has also found that live video interviews and virtual assessment centres have received more positive feedback by students. Video interviews have always been a bit up and down, but I think with the current climate, and we all know that sort of capability is the future, this is really accelerating acceptance of these styles of technology. And then finally, we're finding, or Trendance has found, that the popularity of gamification has also dropped off, pointing much more to sort of more relevant and meaningful assessments potentially in the process. I think that it's these employers, the ones that have been able to adapt quickly and show resilience, that will recover the most easily. So clearly, it's a really important trait to have as a business. When we return to our new normal and everyday lives, this is going to be paramount. Overlay this with the backdrop of students who may not be able to sit formal exams or achieve traditional results. Measuring a candidate's potential and behavioural fit to your organisation will be even more essential to achieving high performance and engagement when they join you. So I did briefly mention this earlier, but one of the last pieces of really interesting research that Trendance found was that around 63% of candidates mirror the poll and news headlines in the way that they are seeing or having a real lack of confidence over finding a job in 2020. I think that's completely understandable, just with what's going on. And I remember when I graduated that back in sort of 2011, that I was thinking 2008's gone and it's going to be really easy because we've had 3 years post sort of the crisis. But the graduate market has never been an easy place. There's a huge amount of companies out there that are recruiting students, but there's a huge amount of students that don't know about the companies, and there's a big kind of misunderstanding with regards to the amount of opportunity there is. So finding and matching people can be really tough anyway, let alone with less opportunity that the coronavirus has caused. What's really important and what can help from employers is communication. So students really want communication, whether they are mid-process or pre-application. It becomes really apparent that the key to supporting students and to rebuild their confidence is regular comms from future employers on what they're up to and how they're responding to the situation and where does it lead. Students show that when you finish university in a period like this, the negative ramifications will stay with those students for most of their careers. So it's really important that we kind of look after them and give them that communication and future to look to. That is research that was found sort of post 2008 in the crisis. So it's very much replicatable now. So moving forwards and away from sort of the content of COVID storm and all that's going on in our topsy-turvy marketplace right now, I'm going to focus a bit more specifically on both the graduates and employers and what they want, and how well aligned that is. This is more consistent despite the current circumstances, so it's still really relevant. If in fact some of it is even more relevant now. If your organisation has chosen to continue recruiting, which is great, even if that means a reduction in headcount or intake, what we do know is that the context of graduate recruitment is changing. A new generation of graduates will be entering the workforce, one that grew up in a tech-driven, on-demand environment, and which innately strives for longer-term focus on building a better and fairer world for us all. There are maybe some positives, like at a stretch from the coronavirus situation, especially with regards to a better and a fairer world, that people are starting to realise that maybe the way that we've gone with technology and how busy we all are, there are maybe some positives that we can pull from such a time as we have now. So just to set the scene a little bit, I am going to pop a video on just to show you about some of the research that we've been doing in this space. So I would just load that up now.
Born in the mid-90s, a new generation is joining the workplace, Gen Z. Concerned with understanding themselves and giving back to society, they value challenge and honesty. Growing up in a world always online and streaming information, where smartphones and social media are the norm for communication, their lives have been shaped by an era of constant change in a time of significant progress. Sustainability, diversity, and fairness are core values for this generation. Given this context, what has changed for graduate employers? 10 years ago, employers were looking for graduates who could get stuff done. In today's world, being collaborative, agile, creative, and resilient are the capabilities in demand. And employers want to find individuals who can grow with them on their journey. The talent lens has shifted to within organisations. Businesses who can understand and accelerate their own people capability are those that will thrive. Finding top graduates to join your business has never been more important, but recruiters still need to balance experience and efficiency in their candidate processes. How can you do this? With a solution that meets graduate expectations and the requirements of hiring managers and recruiters. We asked 800 graduates about the typical tasks and scenarios they experience in their first year of employment. The results revealed a core set of 14 common challenges across roles, organisations and industries, forming the basis for our Graduate Challenges model. The model includes challenges such as working in a cross-functional team, learning a new skill and managing a commercial relationship. Underpinned by SHL's predictive competency model, this provides the ingredients for building a realistic and meaningful experience to recruit and retain top talent. So here's your checklist for optimising graduate recruitment today. Appeal to Gen Z with an honest, meaningful, two-way engagement which is fair and challenging. Provide a realistic view of your own organisation within the world of work today. Ensure that you are assessing relevant behaviours whilst balancing efficiency with candidate experience. And gather the information that you need to retain and mobilise your talent for long-term impact.
Okay, so hopefully you can see the slides again and you can hear me. So don't worry if you didn't manage to jot down what you needed to from that video. I'm going to go through a few of the key points that Sarah, our MD, narrated there. So in 2018, mark the first of a new generation of graduates. This is the Gen Zs as we know them, a cohort with very different views and expectations from their predecessors. They have never known a world without mobile devices, the internet, and the ability to swipe left and right. To an employer, Gen Z does offer a great deal. They strive for great things for themselves and for others. However, with endless options and easy to apply opportunities, if you hope to recruit them to your organization, know that they're really tough to impress and do actually want to be challenged. What we know is that they are looking for an organization that gives back and trusts them to be their own person at work. They really rely on good communication to help them understand themselves and also others in the workplace. They want to feel like what they are doing adds value to the world and actually makes a big difference. So some really key points there to think about when you're structuring your programs and what you're going to do for your graduates and how to entice them to your organization. This is also backed up by the numbers. So we've clearly known for a very long time that candidates really need transparent, clear, ongoing communications about the hiring process and throughout it. But the concept of fairness has really emerged in a sort of as a critically important element. And when they feel a process is fair, they become much more willing and eager to work for that employer. They're also asking for feedback, and the world of automated candidate feedback has moved on considerably in the last 12 months, making scalable, meaningful, and personalized feedback not only possible, but manageable in high volumes. I know from client conversations that I've had that it's a real sticking point. There's a lot of feedback that's given towards the end of a process where it's much more manageable numbers. But feedback is something that now, at least from an SHL's perspective, we have really prioritized and have designed technology to enable that automated feedback as part of the process so that a candidate really feels like they're getting something. I think around 70% of candidates, and it's surprising that it's not maybe a bit higher than that, think that how they are treated throughout a recruitment process really reflects the way that an organization would treat them when they join. So there is a huge assumption and connection between those two things. Going to come on to our second and I think final poll. So we've spent a little bit of time talking about what the graduates want, and now I'm going to focus a little bit about what the graduate employers want from what we've been looking into from an SHL perspective. So get your mice at the ready. And so the question is, which skills are most important to you when hiring graduates? A, engaging and collaborating with peers. B, ability to prioritize days and deliver results. C, being creative and coping with constant change. And D, ability to analyze and interpret information. So I will give you a few seconds or 10, 20 seconds to give the answers that you're thinking there. There's quite a lot of close fighting going on between some of the answers. I'll give it a few more seconds. Okay, so it's a pretty tight battle between B or A and B. So they're roughly around 30% each, which is not wholly surprising. And then coming in sort of third place is being creative and coping with constant change. And then the runner-up of kind of the last place is ability to analyze and interpret the information. That is as we would expect, especially with D coming in last, because that's more of a past feature of what companies require from their graduates. So, however, clearly there are no wrong answers in this necessarily. It's all about what you want as an organization. But we have seen a significant shift in the last decade. In 2009, employers were searching for graduates who could get stuff done. And clearly the video did reference that as well. Those who could analyze and interpret information, and also to a certain extent organize and prioritize their days and delivering results were more of a focus of the past. But 10 years on, the research and the work that we've done has shown a massive emphasis and shift towards engaging with peers, building those networks, and the ability to collaborate and be creative and cope with that constant change. So I'll just click on. Interestingly, our results have shown that there are some noticeable gaps between the in-demand skills, so what the graduate employers want, and then the natural strengths of students now entering the workforce. That isn't necessarily new. So there's always been a little bit of a what students leave university with or higher education with isn't necessarily as well aligned to their business, but I think that it's more of a gap than it used to be. It appears that today's graduates need targeted support to develop many of these capabilities, such as persuading others, thinking creatively, and showing resilience to pressure and change. This means employers will need to be very much prepared to help their graduates with these areas, and that's not insurmountable. You know, building that sort of an understanding into your program will mean you can address that. Organizations, interestingly, are also seeing an increase in the number of internal moves that employees make, and this does apply to graduates too. So it's increasingly likely that both the individual and the organization will need to create opportunities for sideway moves, secondments and placements to create a breadth of ever-evolving learning opportunities. So it's clear that this population does really want to learn. So you're probably thinking, how do we find these people who've got this ability to collaborate, show agility and adapt, and how do we find these behaviors? And I think behavior is a really key word here. As mentioned in the video, SHL's latest research involved almost 800 recent graduates, which confirmed how the world of work has impacted the experiences of graduates today. What we found that was out of the 14 total challenges that we whittled it down to, the ones that are most frequently encountered by the graduates are working in a cross-functional team to help solve a business issue, learning a new skill or application through self-directed learning, and building relationships in an unfamiliar team. The same three challenges came top when asked which challenges graduates felt were most important to their role and which they also felt most prepared to tackle. SHL research also showed that the new graduates are less prepared to demonstrate the softer skills needed when they enter work, and find the most following the following section most challenging. So the three that they find the most challenging are picking up a project at short notice with limited briefing, building relationships in an unfamiliar team, and taking on management responsibility for others. So what does this really all mean? If you are an employer who's looking for collaboration, agility, and adaptability, we can see that there is a genuine disconnect between what you are looking for and the skills of today's graduates and what those students bring to the table. Therefore, graduate recruitment needs to measure fit and potential to develop a new set of skills for the future of work. And once on board, they can then support the graduates in dealing with ambiguity and change, building these networks and developing these new skills. So before I get to the final slide, just around how we are helping our organizations to get through this, there are some really key top tips that we would like you to kind of take away from this to help build into your processes now and in the future. The most important, well, they're kind of all equally important, but so point number one, it's really, really important to create compelling and meaningful assessment experiences that really engage the candidate. Creating sort of really relevant topics and adding context, it's absolutely key, so that they kind of feel like they are educating themselves throughout the process and educating themselves as to whether you are the employer for them. And in the long run, that will help you hugely. Moving into the second piece, educating your candidates with a true picture of your business and show your commitment to their personal growth. They want to stand behind brands that they believe in. And I think that makes a real difference to the individuals. As it said earlier, you know, they do want to give back. Point number three, make sure you use proven research-based assessment tools. The right selection methods will really help you fairly select for diversity, inclusion, and success. I think, there's a bit of overlap here, but they really want you to, they want to showcase their capabilities. They do want to compete against each other, but they want to do that in a way that feels relevant, fair, and meaningful. Point number 4, show that the graduates what it's really like to work for your organization through work-related assessment experiences. I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing in this space in a second, but creating an environment, an immersive experience that they can go to really feel like they understand what it's like to work for you is really important in giving them that education. And then finally, the feedback. We've touched on it already, but providing personalized feedback for all applicants, however detailed, however light touch, having some form of feedback for applicants as part of your assessment process is really important. There are a number of different ways that can be done. But at this point in time, there's sharing of reports, there's obviously giving candidates a call, but then as we move forwards, there is a lot of automation available with video-based feedback, etc. So before we pause for questions, I'll just spend a little bit of time sort of summing this all up into our new adventure for a new generation, as we've called it, or our new graduate solution. Everyone knows SHL pretty much for having very reliable and valid assessments. Where we are focusing hugely right now is on the experience and bringing all that we have into one place. If you are in a position to carry on with your graduate program, which is fantastic, and not let the current situation have a long-lasting impact, you really need to carefully consider your approach to these new graduates. In the current climate, no more than ever, you want individuals that have the ability to adapt and change and learn and grow. There's actually a model that we have at SHL called the 3 E's, where we focus on candidate experience, process effectiveness, and process efficiency. Clearly, I think it's safe to say that over the last 5 years within graduate recruitment, the candidate experience has been paramount, almost maybe to the detriment of the other 2. And there is genuine natural tensions between the 3 of them. If you dial up candidate experience, you may well reduce efficiency, and what we have seen is actually focusing too much on experience can definitely reduce effectiveness and quality of hire. So what we have always done at SHL is try and build any process that we work with our clients on around those 3 E's, so that we can give you a balance across all of them. The graduates that you take on board this year will be the first to have tackled a pandemic and the challenges that's thrown at them. They will be naturally able to adapt a bit more and hopefully show a bit more resilience. SHL have then, or now, developed a solution which we were developing anyway, but it's almost, as I said, more relevant than ever, to help you find those individuals. And underpinned by these challenges and context is going to really help you there. It's also, it was never purely about what was on a candidate's CV, but I think more than ever, we're not going to get that data, or you're not going to have the kind of clear picture or university degree that's going to be as traditional as it has been in the past. So what we need to do as graduate recruiters is support on kind of measuring an individual's whole self. You need to be really understanding their whole behavioral package and focusing on that and how it aligns to your business, rather than as much on a CV or an application form. The students who will drive success for your business are very much individual to you. So SHL's graduate solution isn't going to get you clones. It's not going to get the same candidate for every organization. Because it's built on our graduate challenges model, you can build in your own customization and flexibility. The model aligns to challenges relating to typical tasks and scenarios that graduates commonly encounter within their first year of employment. The context is added to each behavior to increase predictive power of the solution. The end-to-end workflow features a blend of immersive mobile designed assessments. So everything that we do now is fully mobile designed, not just mobile available, but mobile designed, including ability tests, but also, most excitingly, and I'm sure that there may be a question on this, or at least interest from the group, that, what are we doing in the virtual space? And SHL also have their own video interview platform, both live and recorded, but also virtual assessment platform too. So everything is getting moved online, and we've accelerated some technologies in the last couple of months, as you can imagine, in that space. Throughout the process, and you can see on the screen that there's sort of a tile-based approach where the candidates can take full control of their own process, and they will have complete clarity or communication as to what's next, what have they got to do. They can dip in, dip out, how long will things take. So it's giving them what they need with regards to that approach, and you can put more on there that's way beyond psychometric and assessment. So, you know, giving them education about your organization, videos, and the role. So it's really what we've designed or want to design as a one-stop shop for candidate education and assessment, and then obviously interviewing as well. The best thing that I like the most is the functionality to deliver instant personalized feedback, which we can provide to each candidate with a worthwhile experience, which is also going to give you that efficiency and also effectiveness. Everything on the platform is designed to help you stand out, and with where we are in the market and maybe having way fewer people recruiting, it's really important that you stand out to the types of graduates that you really want. So making sure that they feel comfortable, understand your process, is going to be really important. You know, I'll say it again, but really balancing that focus on experience with the efficiency and the effectiveness of the process, and making sure you're using those sort of meaningful tools. Clearly, this session was a much bigger focus on the research and what we're seeing in the market today. But if there is anything else that you'd like to learn with regards to what we're doing in this space, then I'm very happy to speak to everyone. So that is actually the end of my content, and I hope there's a few questions in the question box. I've been tempted to go and have a look at them, but I haven't seen what's in there, Natasha. So yes, hopefully I can answer a few things in there.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jack. That was really insightful, and good to hear some of the bits and pieces that you guys are doing and seeing as well. I'm just going to close the questions slide so that everyone can see your lovely face, so we can answer them directly. We nearly got through the whole thing without the dog barking, but it went.
I know. Must have been a parcel being delivered or something.
That's all right. It's part of the world today, isn't it? You've got kids jumping in, you've got dogs barking, and everything else as well. So quite early on, we had Paul ask, is the research that you quoted publicly available? And do you know where it might be that he might be able to get his hands on it?
Yeah, I think, well, some of the research is ours, so we're very happy to take that conversation forward with Paul. The Trendants, I will have to get back to you. So I'm not sure if that's sort of a purchase. I know that we partner with them as an organisation, but again, you know, happy to have that conversation.
Brilliant, thank you. And you touched on it slightly earlier on, but without a huge amount of detail. So it'd be great to understand a little bit more about the virtual assessment process online. And what you're seeing your clients do, or what you're able to do. So what are you asking grads to do online? Are they just questions and answers? Are they assessments like scenarios? How does the virtual assessment work?
Yeah, there's a huge amount, and clearly graduate recruitment processes have been quite virtual and online for a long time. You know, we saw a significant move from paper and pencil based in the early 2000s. And a lot of what candidates do at the front end of processes now is very much online. That, therefore, is very easy to still deliver. So the situational judgment assessments, the personality questionnaires, the ability assessments, where they've improved is that they've become a lot more accessible and fair across any device, especially from what we're doing. I think the part that people are most interested in right now is how do they go from that stage through to, you know, making an offer, and how do they bring that to a virtual place. So what we've tried to do is build technology that enables, maybe once a candidate has completed the necessary upfront assessments, to then have an option to schedule themselves a live video interview, and then having a specific platform designed for that goes way beyond what a Skype or a Teams can do with regards to functionality that enables that, or giving them the option to do a recorded video interview. And again, those technologies have existed, but not necessarily in an integrated way in a single approach for a candidate. From a virtual assessment perspective, there's definitely a further conversation here to have with the person who asked the question, because there's lots of ways that you can go about it, and it really depends on the style of assessments that you are wanting to do. Clearly, with the grad space or early careers in general with apprentices, there are exercises that you might do in an assessment center, like using matchsticks to build a bridge, or kind of real kind of G-up exercises that are pretty much impossible to recreate online. But if there are individual assessments like role plays, negotiations, analysis presentations, things like that, we have a platform specifically designed to house all of that content to help the assessor mark on it. Multiple assessors can be on that platform. And obviously it's got a video interview built in as well, so it's all done at the same time. If you're looking to run more group-based exercises, our live video interview platform enables up to 10 people at once. So you may have sort of 3 assessors and 7 participants to create specifically designed group exercises for a virtual environment. So we're supporting our organizations there. So I hope that gives a bit of a flavor of how you can move a candidate through the journey from a virtual perspective, all underpinned obviously by the feedback side of things, which can help educate a candidate what's going to come next, because that's really important so that they understand that.
So ultimately it's up to the employer kind of what assessment they do and how they can take it online. There are certain things that you can't build online, but overall it depends on how they operate and what they
and generally speaking, the easiest is the one-to-one side of things is easier to do, and it's always going to be challenging to bring groups together online. I don't think any solution out there in the world has completely nailed that yet, but there is a huge, I guess it's that focus on behavior. With one of the clients I'm talking to who hasn't really been affected by their utilities company, their focus, instead of running a big assessment center, which does a lot of that Meccano stuff, they're more sort of engineering level or engineering type grads, they split their focus to go more into the behavior and actually are using more traditional assessment tools instead of the process, and then using the information off the back of those tools to support a really structured interview so that they feel that they're still measuring the behavior that they would have done face to face, and yet balancing cost, efficiency, etc.
Okay, brilliant. And you touched on the feedback as well. So you can feedback to the candidates at different points in the assessment journey. Is that something that you've seen work better because it is online and it is virtual, that you're just able to feedback and just let them know what the next stages are, rather than being in an assessment centre where sometimes you can be a little bit panicky, you can be a little bit unstructured, people don't really know what's going on. Have you seen the benefits of virtual assessments in those kind of regards?
Definitely, and I also think that thinking of that generation as well, what do they want? So as a younger generation where they're on their phones, I mean, even I'm on my phone pretty much way too much. But
you're still young.
Receiving a 30-second or 45-second video is about all they can process, which gives them something about the process, what their strengths are, what their developments are, really quick, insightful, bite-sized information. Clearly, we're in the business of providing people insight, and that can be quite difficult to digest in a simple way. So actually, having simple media that is easily shared goes a really long way. And of course, if they want to follow up and have a more formal output or a more formal conversation, that's still doable. I'm sure most organizations, if a candidate requests feedback, will give it. But what's really nice is that you can kind of go halfway and kind of touch all bases, and give that more scalable feedback earlier on.
Okay, brilliant. And someone's asked, what is your advice for a business that's looking to start a grad recruitment program for the first time? Do you have any initial sort of top tips?
Yeah, I mean, starting from a first time perspective, I think it's really important to address the question of why. What is the business wanting to get out of the program? So how are you going to create longevity? How are you going to measure success of that program? We at SHL, we structure everything that we do based on outcomes, so that it's much easier for what may be considered a bit of nice to have sort of supply arrangement or what have you. It's really important that the business understands the value of what you're doing. So I would say that it's really important to do that. Whether that is a more sort of leadership-based program, a more role-specific and specific department program, it's kind of working out exactly what the business needs. Following that, it's kind of understanding what you want to bring in for the future. So what graduates do you potentially want leading your business, or people do you want leading your business? Now, clearly, I think it's something like you have to wait on average 38 years for a graduate to become a chief exec. I think so. It's maybe a bit unrealistic to think that they might be your next CEO, but at the same time, there's a strong chance, and you should focus on them being your next, leaders. So making sure that you're measuring potential and the behaviors that are really important for that is really key. And maybe focus a little bit less on the technical side of things, because a lot of that can be taught and trained. From a personal perspective, I would also say that if you are starting a new program, is how do you get yourself out there? So how do you make sure that graduates know that you exist? I think that graduates, only when you get into the world of work, and when I started working at SHL in my profession around dealing with lots of clients, do I realize how many businesses there are and how many actual graduate jobs there were that I didn't have any clue about. And I was at Newcastle University, and the careers side of things there was good, but it just, I think we take for granted as employers how few graduates really find what they're looking for and how to get out there. So a few kind of key points there. The final one I would say, and it's a classic SHL point, but when you are choosing those people, just really focus on objective, fair assessments that work. Giving them assessments that are accessible, that are available online, on mobile phones, and then also predictive and valid. That's paramount. So yeah, hope that helps.
Good, thank you. And I think it might be the final question. Hopefully I'm interpreting it correctly as well. Do you think there is a risk of being left behind as an employer by an entire generation by not engaging in long-term thinking around the current environment? So due to the daily use of technology, I assume word is likely to get around quickly regarding employers' actions during COVID.
I think there's probably a fairly simple yes. I mean, organizations really do need to be adapting right now. I read a statistic recently that I think 75% or nearly 75% of CFOs are considering putting at least 5% of their workforce permanently on remote working. So with all of what is happening right now, there are going to be the makeup of organizations is going to be completely different. They're banning hot desking right now in the UK, but I think in the future, real estate is going to be a bottom line that is easily shrunk because people are going to be able to do a lot more from home, not permanently from home, but at least 2 or 3 days a week or something. And yeah, I think that it is really important to structure everything that you're doing around the future. So from the conversations that I've had with a couple of organizations, most companies, and I think most companies on this call, will have departments that are focused on the future workforce. And all that it's done is those future workforce teams were kind of thinking about a lot of the stuff that we're doing right now anyway, but all it's done is accelerate that. So it's really made it kind of more obvious that how important thinking about how do we give people flexibility, how do we operate in a virtual way, how do we reduce air travel, how do we bring people together but not necessarily face to face. So absolutely, I think that it's important to really be thinking about this longer term and how we can make it work better for the world and for business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything that people have been talking about for the last 12 to 18 months, and I was speaking to one of our other partners earlier in the week, everything that we've been talking about around flexibility, mental health, all of these sort of areas that we've had a focus on over the 12, 18 months, we've gone, yeah, we'll do it sort of shortly, starting to initiate plans. We just had to scale it up at such a fast rate that you can't help but have that conversation now. But excellent. I think that is all of the questions that we've had today, Jack. So thank you very much. I don't know if you've got any closing thoughts or wise words that you'd like to leave us on at all.
Wise words from a 31-year-old new dad. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying. So I think that behaviors, a behavioral approach in this day and age for kind of bringing in new graduates is more important than ever. So making sure you really are focusing on the potential of individuals and on their abilities and kind of ways that then you understand a real core about their person, so that can then be other things can be taught, can be flexed, can be developed when they join you. And on top of that, making sure that you really show your organization off. What can you do? What do you do for society? How are you someone that a Gen Z is going to be impressed by? So those are probably a couple of key takeaways.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jack, and thank you very much to SHL for partnering with us for this webinar today. And for those of you, if you've got any specific questions, we are going to pop an email around with a replay later on today. If you did want to get in touch with SHL, do feel free. They've got lots of insight, and there's lots of more sort of tactical, strategic stuff that I might be able to talk to you on a more sort of one-to-one basis rather than sort of generically on the webinar. So thank you very much to all of you. Do keep an eye on our other events we've got coming up. We've got a number of virtual online events coming up over the next couple of months. So thank you to everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. And thank you very much to Jack and your insight. And congratulations on the new baby.
Thanks. Thank you for having me.
No worries at all. Thanks, everyone. See you later.